Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. So what I'd like to do is kind of discuss with you different parts of correlation. And basically we have a positive, negative, and no correlation at all. Now, I kind of think about correlation. When we're graphing kind of a line, you can obviously see the graph is either, when we have it rising up to the right, that means it's going into positive values, positive y values. But when it's going down, we say that it's going to negative y values, right? So a graph can be going up or it can be going down in terms of our y. Now, a lot of times what we do is when we have a scatter plot, and a scatter plot is a way for us to represent information by points. And if we have points, for instance, like let's say our grade scores throughout the year, okay? So this would kind of be like the start. Maybe like here would be like August, and here would be June, okay? And here's going to kind of be 0% to 100%. And if the graph scores for the students are all over the place, it doesn't matter where the student is, the students that scored low at the beginning of the year still score low at the end of the year, and the students that scored high at the beginning of the year still score high at the end, then there's really no correlation between how their grades are at the beginning of the year with how their grades at the end of the year, right? They're going in about the same direction. A positive correlation would mean that their grades are getting stronger as the year goes on. The scores are getting higher. So an example of a strong positive correlation would be like, let's say the grades August are very low, and then as the year goes on, as we get to the end of the year, you can see that their grades are obviously getting better. They're going up higher and higher, right? So this is what we call a strong correlation. You can see very obviously they're going up into the positive direction. A weak positive correlation would be one that's kind of the same, but maybe we got some outliers in there, all right? And but you can definitely see like this graph is definitely going in like a positive direction. But this is what we call a weak. And these are both positive correlations. Now, what about if the grades were going down? Now, as a teacher, that would be very bad news, right? But you can, again, represent this. And let's say, oh, at the beginning of the year, their grades are nice and high. And then at the end of the year, these kids I stopped teaching or whatever else. And then they're getting down very low. This would be what we call a weak negative correlation. And so the way, ladies and gentlemen, to kind of differentiate between the two, obviously, if there's no correlation at all, you have no idea what's going on, that's no correlation, which I didn't write in there. If the y values are getting positive, as you go from left to right, the y values are getting positive, we call it a positive correlation. If that's very obvious, we call it strong. If it's semi-obvious, we'd call it weak. If the y values are getting smaller, then we call that a negative correlation. And that is not weak, that is strong. But if I maybe have some values here, then maybe this would be an example of a weak negative correlation. So basically, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at correlations and trying to identify what is the correlation going to be. Thanks.